Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a secret history of espionage. We're talking about a shadow war that's been fought for decades, leading to operations so precise they could literally change the course of history in a single moment.
So let's set the scene. The date you see on screen, that's hypothetical, of course. But the details, well, they're drawn from decades of real-world intelligence. Imagine this. It's early morning in Tehran. The city is just starting to wake up, and nobody has any idea that an operation years in the making is about to hit its endgame.
The mission itself unfolds with just chilling precision. A single jet, armed with missiles so accurate they could hit a specific dinner table from 1,000 kilometers away, slips right past Iran's defenses. And the target isn't just some random building. It's the highest level meeting you could possibly imagine. In one single, swift strike, the entire senior leadership of Iran could be gone. That's the kind of attack that reshapes the world overnight.
Which of course brings us to the real question. How could an operation of this magnitude even be possible? How could foreign intelligence know the exact time and place of a meeting that secret? How could they just bypass Russian-made air defenses and black out communications without anyone even noticing? You know, this wasn't luck. Not at all. It was the result of a vast, deeply embedded intelligence machine.
So let's do it. Let's dissect the anatomy of this operation. Because to really understand the strike, you first have to get inside the incredible intelligence machine that made it all possible.
At the very core of this whole thing is a technique called pattern of life analysis. What's so fascinating about this is that it's all about knowing a target so incredibly well that you can predict their next move before they even make it. We're talking about analyzing daily routines, movements, and habits down to the absolute smallest detail. Building a profile so intimate it might be more than their own family knows about them.
And this analysis is fed by three totally distinct streams of intelligence. First, you've got signals intelligence, or SIGINT. That's where Israel's elite Unit 8200 allegedly penetrates Tehran's traffic cameras, its mobile networks, and feeds a live, real-time view of the city straight to servers in Tel Aviv. Then there's massive data analysis. Algorithms are just churning through billions of data points, call records, location data, video, to map out social networks and flag any weird meetings. And finally, you have the crucial old-school piece of the puzzle, human intelligence, a real-life CIA source planted deep inside the leadership's inner circle.
So with all that intelligence in place, the execution itself rests on three pillars. First, you have to confirm the target. The Ayatollah was Iran's most protected person, right? He'd often disappear into bunkers when tensions got high. But on this day, he wasn't. And this was confirmed independently by two Israeli officers and, crucially, by the CIA's person on the ground. Second, you create a communications blackout. Israeli cyber units surgically disrupt the mobile towers nearby. Not a total shutdown, that would raise alarms, but just enough to make a call drop or a text fail to send. And third, the strike itself, launched from way outside the maximum range of Iran's air defenses.
Now, an operation this complex, this layered, it doesn't just come out of nowhere. This hypothetical strike we've been talking about, it's not the start of a war, it's the culmination of one. A secret, undeclared shadow war that has been raging between Iran, Israel, and the US for decades.
This quote from an Israeli official to the Financial Times, it really says it all. The level of penetration is so deep that there's a dark joke that when three Iranian leaders meet, two of them are probably Mossad agents. This isn't just about one operation, it's about building an entire ecosystem of espionage right inside the country.
And to see just how deep this really goes, we have to look at the actual covert playbook that's been used against Iran. And these next examples, well, they aren't hypotheticals. These are documented, real-world operations.
Just look at how this all builds over time. Back in the mid-2000s, you had the Stuxnet computer worm, a joint US-Israeli project that physically destroyed Iranian nuclear centrifuges by making them spin completely out of control. Then, between 2010 and 2012, a whole wave of assassinations took out key nuclear scientists. In 2018, Mossad agents apparently snuck into a Tehran warehouse and just walked out with half a ton of secret nuclear documents. And then in 2020, and this is where it starts to feel like science fiction, Iran's top nuclear scientist was assassinated on a highway by a remote-controlled, AI-assisted machine gun.
And if you just look at the methods, you can see a really clear pattern of increasing sophistication. It goes from a remote-controlled bomb in 2010 to agents on motorcycles slapping magnetic bombs onto cars in 2012, all the way to that AI-powered robotic gun in 2020. Each operation gets more daring and more technologically advanced than the last. But to really truly understand this shadow war, we have to ask a bigger question. Where did all of this begin?
I mean, the story we hear today focuses on Iran's nuclear program, but the seeds of this conflict were actually planted long before that, over a totally different precious resource, oil.
And this is where the source material points to a massive contradiction. The stated goal today is to support democracy in Iran. But back in 1953, the CIA actively worked to overthrow Iran's democratically elected government. So why?
It all came down to something called Operation Ajax. See, in 1951, Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh nationalized Iran's oil industry, taking control away from the British. In response, the CIA and MI6 launched a covert operation. They funded street protests, they bribed politicians and military officers, and they ran a huge propaganda campaign to paint Mossadegh as a communist and as anti-Islam. The coup worked, Mossadegh was removed, and the autocratic, US-friendly Shah was installed in his place.
And that single event basically set the stage for everything that followed. The Shah's 26-year rule, backed by the US, created this deep, simmering resentment among the Iranian people. That resentment eventually just boiled over into the 1979 Islamic Revolution, which brought the current regime to power, the very same regime the US is trying to undermine today.
Which brings us full circle, right back to the present, and to the central, unanswered question at the heart of this entire conflict. What is the real endgame here?
Well, based on the source material we've looked at, there are two competing ideas. The official story is that these operations are necessary to prevent a nuclear Iran and to help the Iranian people achieve democracy. But the source claims the goal isn't a true independent democracy at all, but rather a remote-controlled government, one that aligns with US and Western interests. You know, a lot like the Shah's regime did.
And so after this long, tangled history of coups and cyber attacks and assassinations, we're left with one final, critical question. Can taking out one leader, or even 40 of them, ever truly create lasting peace? Or does it just guarantee that this same shadow war will be fought by the next generation? That's the question this history forces all of us to confront.